That's what it sounded like 8 months ago on October 5th, 2023. We were at the mosaic-tiled Sephardic Kehillah Center in Toronto, where Israeli actor Swell Ariel Or had just arrived from her hotel. It was still a couple of hours before her scheduled appearance later that night on behalf of Israel Bonds in Canada, but she'd come early to meet with me to tape a sit-down interview with the CJN Daily. I was the only independent media person in Canada who the young Israeli actor had agreed to talk to during this whirlwind trip. After event staff posed for pictures with her, it was my turn to take her into the president's office, where we'd set up a makeshift radio studio. Like many of you, I had just watched the Israeli series The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, and Swell Ariel Or had lit up the screen as Luna Ermoza, the fashion designer daughter of a traditional Sephardic Jewish family living in Jerusalem in the 1920s and 1930s. It was a turbulent time before the State of Israel was founded. Jewish residents were being attacked by Arabs. Jewish resistance fighters were mounting raids on the British troops, who were in control of the colony until 1948. And Or's fictional TV family was involved in all of it. Little did we know that 36 hours after our interview would be October 7th. I was at home when I received the news that Saturday morning. She had just landed back in California, where she'd moved to further her show business career. We never ran our interview because everything changed that day for Israel, for Jews, for me and the CJN, and for her.
I make the Israeli experience more accessible to Jews outside of Israel, and I think that it's very important, especially when now the most dangerous thing that we're facing is a campaign of dehumanizing us. And the best tool to fight back is through authentic stories about Israelis.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News.
I can't date women right now because I'm too busy calling myself a piece of shit.
I had a dysfunctional Jewish mother and I had a dysfunctional Native mother.
I had 25 full years of utter struggle and failure.
I started to realize the absurdity of my inability to let go of this monster of guilt.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Hi, I'm Ralph Ben-Rig. I'm the host of Not That Kind of Rabbi, where we look at people's spiritual journeys and take a little time for their self-reflection, and maybe yours. You can get it all at the cjn.ca/NTKR or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is the eve of Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, where 57 years ago, in 1967, Israeli troops recaptured the eastern part of Jerusalem from the Jordanians during the Six-Day War. In doing so, Israel reunited its ancient capital and regained access to Judaism's most holy monument, the Western Wall. Every year, Israel marks the event with a national holiday and a controversial flag parade through the Old City. Controversial because, in recent years, extreme right-wing Jewish marchers have yelled hate speech and vile slogans at Palestinians while marching directly through Jerusalem's Muslim quarter to get to the Western Wall. And several years ago, this march ignited a brief war between Israel and the Palestinians. It usually sparks violence in the West Bank and elsewhere. This year, about 3,000 Israeli police officers are being deployed to keep a lid on things. On today's show, I want to bring you my conversation with the beauty queen of Jerusalem, Swell Ariel Or, in two parts. Part one all sounds so poignant now, as we talked about the show's portrayal of sexual assault. We talked about why the actor decided to pick up stakes from Tel Aviv and move to Hollywood just 2 weeks earlier, and whether she could actually sew her own clothes in real life. Then, as you'll hear, I called her back in late fall to ask her how she'd pivoted from show business to raising money for her beleaguered country. Our listeners may not know, but you're now living or moved to LA.
Yeah, I moved
just
to LA
recently, right?
2 weeks ago.
Was that for political reasons too, or what was the reason that you
No. No, my reasons were career-wise. I want to bring the Oscar home, and I can't do it from Israel, unfortunately.
Gal Gadot has paved the way for blockbusters in Hollywood for Israeli stars, and before that, and of course Shira Haas in the Netflix world. But why can't Israeli actors get Oscars?
No, we can, but not from Israeli films yet, unfortunately.
Jewish subjects is different, but Israeli films is
I think that
harder.
Israeli films are not even getting nominated for the Oscars, and not because they're not good, because they're brilliant. We have the best content. But I think that this recognition won't come at first from an Israeli film. It will come from Guy Nativ, a director. It will come
That's
from
the director
actors.
of Golda,
Yes,
for our
yes.
listeners who don't know.
It will come from all of the others, like actors, directors, screenwriters. And then finally, hopefully, an Israeli film will win the Oscar.
When you came to accept this gig to speak for Israel Bonds, what was the reason that you decided this was something that meant that you should do this?
It's not the first time I'm doing it. I did public speaking for federations too. And it's something that is very important for me because I think that there's a huge gap between the Israeli experience of being a Jew and the experience of being a Jew outside of Israel. And
100%.
we have to do whatever we can to close this gap and to gain more knowledge and tools for a conversation. And I think that my story somehow is the most basic, normal, beautiful Israeli story.
Shtisel did that for the Haredi community on Netflix and Unorthodox, and your story, Beauty Queen, and seeing Israelis in a different way as a whole period of time that many people were not familiar with, especially younger people. Older people know a bit more history. You had nothing in common with someone who was living in the 30s, Luna, your character. Could you explain how you got into her mindset?
Yes, definitely. It was a challenge at the beginning. I feel very lucky that in Israel we have history classes about those periods, not just after the establishment. And obviously I read the book 4 times. And I watched a lot of films from that period, read a lot of researches, articles about that time. It was very important for me to understand what was a woman's desires and what was the glass ceiling for a woman, because as an actress, you only play a part of the story. So I really focus on Hollywood of the 40s because Luna is all obsessed about like the beauty and fashion, and it really helped me. And to implement all the knowledge that I gained by researching, I started to journal her day-to-day life because it's something that I'm doing in my day-to-day life.
You literally journal in your phone or in a...
No.
You actually have a book?
Yeah. Since I'm a little kid. And I'm doing it to understand myself better. And I just thought maybe it will help me to understand her better. And it did.
How could you prepare for some of the other things, though, such as the sexual assaults or the domestic abuse scenes, which I don't know if you have personal or people you know who went through that?
I don't think there is a way to prepare for that properly. You talk to women who experience that. You see documentaries about it, and you go to your therapist. Go to your therapist every week because it's important. You have to take care of yourself as an actor too, because it is a lot. It's very heavy and dark. And I think that the whole cast and crew knew how delicate this subject is, so everyone gave their full support. The production company, the director, Israel, who is my partner, and he plays David. And we managed to do it. It wasn't easy because, it's not easy subjects, but I always felt safe. I always knew that I can say, stop, and then everything will stop. It's not real at all. No, you have...
although David Israel does box because I follow him on Instagram, right? And is.
But he never. No, it was harder for him than for me.
I was wondering how he navigated that because that's not who he is. And
sometimes we had to stop the scene because he couldn't do it, and
he didn't want to do it. Or he couldn't.
He was. It was. He
like
was
to hit you, or
to be in this position because, of course, we're acting, but still, he saw me reacting to him, and it was too much for him. Sometimes. And I had to tell him, it's okay. I know it's not who you are. I feel safe. We have to tell this story. We have to completely give in. It's important. You're okay. You're not a bad person. And we managed to do it at the end.
What do you hear from viewers or other women or men who have watched this, who've perhaps had this kind of experience with domestic abuse or PTSD, of course, in the army and things?
Yeah, of course.
What do they say? What surprised you?
I think that the reaction that stayed with me the most, it was when I went to a vacation in Israel, in Jerusalem, to an hotel. And the one who worked at the hotel at the front desk, when she saw me, she started to cry. Like, not just, one tear, like really overwhelmed emotionally. I went to ask her, like, are you okay? Something happened. And it really triggered her to see those episodes, but in a healing way, because you hear those stories and you read about them, or Hamsa, you hear about the sad end, but you never really see how it looks like. And I think it's very important to show it, and not through an article in the news or a documentary, in a TV series, because, in those homes or relationships that you suffer from that kind of behavior, maybe your partner won't let you see a documentary about a woman that was murdered. And it's very important.
So it's sort of like under stealthy way to safely explain it. Yeah. And it's fiction, so
it's fiction, and also
it's a soap opera. They could say that. I see. That's actually interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think that is very important. That also after every episode that contained this sensitive content, there was numbers at the end.
For like a hotline? Or,
yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I don't know if in Canada and then Netflix they have
maybe
that.
I'm not Israel
sure.
it was.
In Israel they were. Wow.
And I really think that the beauty and how they chose to tell the story is that they show all the signs. So maybe even if we manage to save one woman out of it, we did our job.
Let's move to a little bit lighter side, which is the fashion. So in the show, you get to do lots of fashion. How much of the sketching was actually you, or did someone else do that? Nothing? And how much of the sewing? Did you learn how to sew on a machine? How did you? I saw you playing with the fabric.
Acted. I did some stuff with my hand, and
so you can't sew at all?
No.
Not a stitch?
No. But the fact that you thought I can just made me realize that I did a good job.
No, because some actors learn how to ride a horse. They learn how to play a piano.
Yeah, it depends on the skill, of course. But it wasn't something that is so, like, you didn't have a lot of focus on the sewing itself.
Did you get to keep any of the frocks that you supposedly designed?
No,
nothing.
Not yet,
You're not
because they are keeping an option for season 3,
Understood. That would be amazing. But you're busy. I know you have 3 films or series that you've done. I know October 18th, Karaoke, How to Be Karaoke. Mm-hmm. So that's about you going to Rio de Janeiro. And did you learn to speak Portuguese? Yeah. Did you have any? Are you good with languages, I imagine? Yeah. What did you grow up at home? Only Hebrew, or you also spoke
Hebrew,
Arabic?
Russian, Yemenite Arabic, but I'm not fluid.
You took those projects on after season 2 was here, or the one also that is Arava and
Kisufim.
Mm-hmm. When did you start filming that? Was that in between?
In between the seasons.
Everything was done. That's busy.
Yeah.
That was Swell Ariel Or on her Instagram account, singing about her beloved Israel under attack after October 7th. She was still in California, trying to audition for acting roles in Tinseltown to add to her repertoire of hit Israeli productions she's been in. One of these was the film called Kisufim. It came out last year. It's about a group of Israeli army friends posted to the Kisufim kibbutz along the border with Gaza during the 1970s. On October 7th, it was one of the targets of the Hamas attacks. In late November, I spoke to Swell Ariel Or from New York, where she'd just done a fundraising event for wounded Israeli soldiers, all while coping with her own flashbacks from personally surviving a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv in 2016 when she was a teenager. Are you heading back to Israel now, or is that why you're there?
No, I was here for an event of the Lev Echad, which is an organization that helps soldiers with PTSD. It was amazing. to see what they do. It was more honoring the soldiers themselves, and they had soldiers who got injured on October 7th, and it was crazy to meet them and hear their stories.
How did that happen? Like, how can they bring them here?
They took care of them in the last few weeks, physically, mentally, and they brought not a lot of them, few of them that were in a position that they can talk and share. So relatively, they are okay.
Oh my God. So what did you have to do?
I spoke about PTSD and the effects of it and how much help you need to, not to recover, because you can't really fully recover, but to gain the tools that you need to live normally, sort of.
We're speaking now, and that we have to speak now, as opposed to having life before October 7th. We met October 5th, and it was a different world.
It was.
And I know you have done your fighting from over there. You're volunteering, I should say, not fighting. Can you bring us up to date on how your volunteer activities, what you've been doing regarding the repaying soldiers' airfares?
Yes, it started when I spoke to friends of mine who just started their big trip. I don't know if you're aware, but in Israel, it's a very cultural thing to finish with the army and then go travel for at least like 6 months, a year. And they were on their way back to Israel, and no one covered their flights. And I understand, because Israel had so much to deal with, especially in the first days of the war. But for me, it was something that I realized should be taken care of. They don't need to pay their own ticket to go to battle and fight to protect us. I realized that's the small piece of the puzzle that I can do. And I talked to 2 friends of mine, Yoni and Leslie, and together we opened this beautiful thing. It's kind of complicated. I mean, I wasn't aware of how big of an operation it's going to be when I open it, but we're doing it. We're raising money. We're reimbursing the soldiers, and everyone needs to do whatever they can do, even if it's the smallest thing. And all together, we can show those soldiers that we see them and we thank them and we take care of everything for them.
I read the website. I looked it up, of course. You've covered 260 flights, or that's $260,000.
It's an average of $1,000 for a ticket. And we currently supporting 260, like you said, but we're continuing to raise more money because we have a waiting list of soldiers, and we're balancing between how much we've raised and how much soldiers we have. The only thing is that it's taking longer than I thought, because it is complicated to transfer the money in a legal way from, a U.S. nonprofit to the bank accounts of Israeli soldiers. It is important not in terms of life or death. It is important in terms of bringing their morale up, to make them smile. I don't know, to make them know that hopefully when this terrible war is over, they can just go back to wherever they were and continue travel, or to their honeymoon, or to wherever they were. And I'm using a lot of social media for that. And it's not easy to fundraise. It's not my job. I've never done it before, but it's working, Hamza.
I did see you guys, you and some of your co-stars from Beauty Queen did a live Instagram. I don't know what it was, like a program like 2 weeks ago or last week. What was that for?
To bring the morale up of fans of the show. It's part of the fight.
And then tell us a bit about the Kisufim Award that the film won in Florida recently. Having to go there and do that at this time, I saw that you talked about security concerns, which I'd like to hear what that was all about.
We didn't want to take any risks. It's an international film festival, not an Israeli or Jewish one. And the film is kind of political. So we called the police. We had 2 cops that came with us to the festival. And we wore the shirts of Bring Them Back Home, because we knew how important it is, and we felt safe enough. And it was amazing that we won the best foreign film, because it shows you that there's place for Israeli voices. There's room for that, and there's recognition.
The film, of course, for our listeners and viewers who haven't seen it, is about what life was like in the 70s in a border community. So it's so timely.
Yeah.
When you were filming it, was it filmed right in the same area?
Yeah, in Kisufim.
So have you had contact with the people in the community that you must have met while you were there?
We are in touch with them. They've lost a lot of people. They have people who are hostages now in Gaza. Half of the kibbutz is destroyed, and it's very sad. But we are trying to do screenings of the film, fundraise for the kibbutz, and to do whatever we can for them.
I wanted to ask you, you were aware of some of the Hollywood celebrities such as Mark Ruffalo and Susan Sarandon and some of the ones who come out very strongly against Israel. How does it feel for you seeing these major Hollywood stars coming out with such strong anti-Israel positions when you're now trying to make your way in Hollywood?
I'm not threatened by it. I wish I'll have an opportunity in the future to sit with them and to have a chat, to share what it's like from the inside, to share what it's like to be an Israeli. You know, if we're talking about films and TV, in the last few decades, the Israeli formats are being sold and remaked all over the world. Like Homeland, In Therapy, Euphoria, On the Spectrum, Your Honor. Like
The Beauty and the Baker, they did that too.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a lot. They have a lot of appreciation. Unfortunately, it can't happen in Lebanon or in Syria or in Iraq, Iran, all of that, because there are people with, you know, the beautiful minds of creators and screenwriters and artists in general. They don't have the freedom. In Israel, you do have that. So, circling back to your question, I don't take it personally. I just can't wait for the opportunity to talk to them.
Thanks for being with us at the Canadian Jewish News.
Bye.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. Now, we don't know whether Beauty Queen has been renewed for a third season. It would pick up where it left off, with her character Luna flying off to Paris to pursue a career in fashion and leaving behind her on-screen abusive husband David, played by Israel Ogalbo. But in recent months, she has been on set again, this time back in Israel, reunited with her Beauty Queen producer for a series called Handles. It's about people who survived October 7th. You can follow her popular Instagram account. I put the link in our show notes. The CJN Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman, and our music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.
Y'all remember that joke from Airplane? The old lady asked for some light reading.
How about this leaflet, famous Jewish sports legends?
But in actuality, that's changing. Jews are crushing it in sports around the world, and we are here to celebrate them.
Sandy Koufax gets his 10th strikeout.
Zach Hyman, his first career hat trick. 41 points for Diddy Avdia. It's Sue Bird's building.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jamie.
We love Jews and we love sports, but most of all, we love kvelling over Jews in sports.
Together we host Menschwarmers, the longest-running Jewish sports podcast in the world. Listen and subscribe at thecjn.ca and wherever you find your podcasts.